And welcome back, and John Moore is back to give a cameo visit and give it a little update and a correction to some information that's out there in the blogosphere. John, tell us the story. What's going on?
Okay, Doctor. Thank you very much. It's good to be back and visit with you, Dr. Deagle. Over the weekend, a person or persons posted 2 YouTube audio messages. What they did, Doctor, they went back 3 years ago to my archives on Republic Broadcasting, took one of my shows where I was talking to Ann Morrison on a Friday morning, and they edited out everything but less than 7 minutes. It was 6 minutes and something seconds. That 6-minute message, when it was edited, became something else entirely different. First of all, they made it sound like the broadcast took place in the last few days as opposed to 3 years ago. In addition, the message had to do with some information I got from a couple of sources concerning the 10th planet, Planet X, Wormwood, the Destroyer, that these 2 sources thought that the 10th planet, Planet X, would be coming through our solar system between August and September. In that broadcast, I gave multiple caveats, multiple warnings that this was not my information, that it came from these 2 sources, to give myself some distance from these people, because while I did think they were reliable, I didn't want to put 100% faith behind what they were saying. So what went out on these 2 audios on YouTube was a matter of fraud and misinformation and deceit to convince people that in the last few days, John Moore has given out a warning that Planet X will be doing a flyby our inner solar system between August and September this year.
Wow.
Yeah. I had my webmaster contact YouTube, and we've now filed some paperwork with YouTube that there's a copyright and violations going on here. And I already contacted Before It's News. They immediately pulled the link off their website. I'm glad they did that. I've had good relations with Before It's News. And now, over the weekend, Doctor, you were contacted by somebody about these audios also, and that's when you called me. So here we are.
Yeah, and I figured the fact is, we have Professor McCanny on, usually on Fridays, and sometimes he comes on other days. He's very guarded in the statements. He's been doing, major TV productions on the Discovery Channel. He's considered one of the top tier 1 scientists speaking publicly on astrophysics. And he won't make outlandish claims like this. What we can see is hyperelliptical comets are coming in. We're seeing increase in volcanism and earthquakes. The plasma physics of all the planets is changing, so they're all heating up. They're not due to global warming because there's no SUVs on Mars. We're seeing increase in the plasma physics of the sun and the changes in the extreme weather. All these are signs of action at a distance of something could be literally in the Oort cloud, which is out at 0.73 light years. And there's absolutely no evidence, visual or otherwise, that there's any object now coming into the inner solar system, although it may be in the future. We know that the signs will be pretty darn obvious because we're watching them with Chandler X-ray telescope. I have not only regular but classified contacts, and there's no evidence that I can see of anything approaching during the time period they're mentioning. But over the weekend, I saw the movie San Andreas, of course, had some bad science indicating that there was going to be a tsunami. A tsunami would occur in a subduction zone like the Cascadia subduction zone off of Oregon and Washington State. It certainly wouldn't occur off L.A. And these buildings, by the way, because the vertical upthrust, it's already recorded in the rocks, and if it released in one major 9.5, none of those buildings, including the skyscrapers, would be up more than 45 seconds. They'd all come down. So if you're in a big city, and by the way, the earthquakes don't transmit far, so if you're 10 miles away from the fault zone of the San Andreas, you're probably fine. Your building will be fine, especially if it's properly structurally built. It's if you're on those fault lines or within 10 miles of them, get the heck away from it. Because when San Andreas does give, if you're in any building, including your own home, you're going to die. You're going to get crushed, and you won't have much time to get out of it either. So,
Doctor, let's segue to talk about that movie. Of course, it's a Hollywood production meant to entertain, but on one hand. On the other, if it alerts some people to look into the true nature of earthquakes, and they do, in fact, end up making prudent preparations because of this Hollywood production, then I'm all for it. And of course, they're not holding out the film to be scientifically accurate. They make no claim of that.
No.
So it may serve a good purpose, and probably several millions of people will see it, and there's no way to tell how many will get woke up as to the nature of the violence that an earthquake can bring to a city. So it may serve a good purpose in that way, Doctor.
Yeah, the other thing is that there are ways, they're doing research at a number of universities here in terms of measuring telluric currents across the fault lines. That's current science. It's been going on for over 10 years at University of California, Davis, and elsewhere. There's no excuse for us not knowing when an earthquake's coming. And the problem is, you see, that the earthquake preparation is not advanced enough in terms of the population. These overpasses are not structurally tested to see if they'll survive it. The buildings definitely won't survive it, especially in upthrust zones like Los Angeles, southern LA. And the people need to understand that you won't be getting magnetic flux. You'll get what's called change in telluric ground currents that occurs before the earthquake's going to strike. And the thing that happens before that is what's called gravity waves, and it's classified Warehouse 13 technology that our governments have space-based gravity wave satellite detection systems and the SPT Pi-Meson telescope in Antarctica below the ice shelf. And they're watching these things from deep space, and they've been looking for Tycho Brahe's anomaly, which is the anomaly of the gravitonics of a deep space object approaching from the Oort cloud for over 120 years. This is not something new. This is something that's been going on for well over a century. So all this research is not classified. A lot of it's in the open thing, but people don't read or connect the dots. You've done an excellent job, and your course show is 2 hours a day from, I think, is it Central Time, what is it, 6 to 8
a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday on Republic.
Over on Republic Radio, and I think they should listen to your program because you cover a lot of good science and prepping. You're one of the top prepper experts, so do listen to John's show over there. It's really important, and periodically you'll pop in here to give us an update.
Absolutely, Doctor. It's been, I do miss being on your show. I'm just really busy. What can I say?
Yeah, well, you're a forensic investigator too, and I think that I think people should realize is being a forensic investigator, you're not going to make jumping conclusions. You're going to make forensic kind of medical, evidential type of conclusions. So when you say that you're concerned about earth changes, because the government knows the kind of earth changes are very, very probable, like we call a lithospheric disjunction, the crust of the earth move. Mountains, like the mountains around the world, like the Himalayas, are not made over thousands or millions of years. They're made over months.
That's right.
The crust of the earth moves. And people should understand we're due for, like Professor McCanny says, we're due for the caldera at Yellowstone. If we don't empty that lake, it's going to cause a steam-generated supervolcano caldera explosion. Earthquakes have increased around Japan 500% over 5+ Richter scale. Earthquakes all over the planet, everywhere, are like Jesus said in Matthew 24. So if people aren't prepping for extreme weather, extreme violence, day after tomorrow scenarios, they're just not paying attention. And
Absolutely.
So even if it's bad science in that movie, I think what you're doing, telling people to prep and to get ready, and the government's scrambling. I mean, they're scrambling. There's a guy by the name of Rugal that actually is working with a One World organization that actually is projecting in 2025 only 66 million Americans will be alive on this continent. 260 million will be gone somewhere, maybe moved elsewhere or dead. And they only have them in I think, 10 super compact super cities with the average size apartment 300 square feet. That's what they're predicting.
Right, right.
These people are actually taken seriously. Yeah, these people are taken seriously by the president, who's met them numerous times. So people say, Dr. Deagle, you're making this up. No, I actually have seen pictures of these leaders with Obama and the actual documentation. So people say, that's craziness. I said, yeah, the world is so crazy that you can't believe it because you think it's a conspiracy theory. When you talk about this stuff, evidence, and I talk about it, people think, you're nuts, Deagle, this can't happen. This is a wet dream of these Satanists. Believe it or
Doctor,
not.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get this information out. I really appreciate it, sir.
That's important. And listen to John's show 6 to 8 a.m. Monday to Friday, or on rebroadcast on Republic Radio. Thank you, John, for popping on.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bob Ellerton's coming back from TURTLETUFF Shelters. He'll be back in a minute, and we'll be talking about more prepper stuff and your questions. And welcome back. And we have Bob Ellerton, and Bob is here to give us the latest information on TURTLETUFF Shelters. And of course, you also are a prepper expert. You have some amazing videos. And we have lots of time today, actually, and we're going to talk, and we take questions specifically about TURTLETUFF Shelters and prepping today, and we can actually you can stay if you can stay a little longer, Bob, because you have a lot of good material that people need. And I tell people we have Joel Skousen on, who also has his great books and videos on preparedness as well, and he's a personal consultant for that. Your TurtleTuff shelters are the best portable shelter people should have. And I watched the movie 3D over the weekend on the San Andreas super earthquake that they're predicting, the big one they call it. That started off, and they had some bad science. They started off talking about earthquake fault zones off in Nevada, and then connecting up across the Hoover Dam that connected up with. Number one, we already know the fault lines where it's going to start, and there's not going to be a tsunami because there's no subduction zone off of the coast of California. There is off the Cascadia subduction zone off Washington and Oregon. And the upthrust zone in Los Angeles will down those skyscrapers in 45 seconds. So if there's a 1 meter vertical upthrust as a 9.5 earthquake, those skyscrapers will be trashed in 45 seconds. You're not going to be escaping, and it's not going to allow you to come in and have the Rock superhero kind of dive in and save your butt. Not going to happen. You're going to die almost instantly. So
unless you're living in, and you can jump out the window, huh?
Right, yeah, or one of those bat capes, The fact is that also earthquakes on the West Coast here are not transmitted far. If you're 10 miles from a major fault zone, you're basically probably going to be fine. So even if you're living in a big city, if you're far enough away from the major fault lines here in California, you're probably going to be cool. The problem is that water and electricity are going to be cut off because of the canals that carry water in here, the power lines. And, of course, the crazy people who are basically not prepping to even have more than 3 days of food and dog food or water stored in their closet in bottles. And they're not prepared for anything. And they're certainly not prepared for the fact that their building is not structurally safe to be inside even their own home if they decide to not get on the road, which to me is what I call, instead of them calling freeways, they should call them parkways, because they're a place where you park, especially if you go to, say, Las Vegas. My wife went to Las Vegas over the weekend with my daughter just to have some fun with her and her girlfriends and her daughter's girlfriend, just a Friday night, Saturday night. And luckily they went at times where they didn't get parking there. But I'm telling you, you got to understand how dangerous it is to think you're going to get out of a big city when all hell breaks loose. And if you don't have a TurtleTuff shelter, these are portable. They'll take 150-mile-an-hour winds. They'll keep you dry, warm, and even have connected tunnels, so you can actually make a community of these. And you can even have TurtleTuff shelters that can actually be transparent to allow you to make them as greenhouse as well. So these are like a permanent type of shelter. I tell people they're superior to a building. They're portable. They're in small containers that are like cubes that you can actually load in the back of a RV trailer or even a minivan. And you can erect them in a matter of a few hours because they're aircraft aluminum. Let's talk about the shelters and the costs for the 8-foot high and the 9-foot high and the different sizes and the options that are available. If they go through the hyperlink at the bottom of our associates there for TurtleTuff shelters and they use the code 3215, they're going to save 5%. Tell us about this.
Well, I developed this about 10 years ago because I was looking for a personal shelter for my family. I realized that, I had a food storage and water purification in case of emergency, but I got to thinking, well, gee, if something causes us to have to leave our homes, which is probably going to be, then I need something to live in, especially in areas like where I live up in Utah. In the winter, it's darn cold, and I don't want to be out without shelter. So I started researching, and everything I looked at yurts, and I looked at all kinds of things, teepees and this and that and the other. They were either too expensive, too difficult to carry, too difficult to set up. I wanted a geodesic dome, but all the geodesic domes on the market were like $12,000 plus, and the yurts were $20,000 plus. I couldn't afford that. So I got busy and developed and designed, based on my background in physics and engineering, developed my own geodesic dome, and I made it so that it was just as strong, in fact, lighter weight, using aircraft alloy aluminum instead of steel, only 1/4 the weight. And I produced that, had one of them I set up my yard for just me. I just did this for my family. I had people see it and talk it about. Pretty soon I had a lot of people that said, hey, we want one. So I ended up starting a little company and building them. That was 10 years ago, and I sold, nearly 1,000 now, I think. And people like them. They tell their friends. And the reason they like them is that they're low cost, not $12,000. It starts at about $2,200 and goes up to $39.98. And that the upper one comes with insulation, R14 insulation that you can install. Comes with a floor. Comes with a wood stove with all accessories, the water tank in the wood stove, all the stovepipes, and all those things that you would need. So it's quite complete. You buy a TURTLETUFF and 16-foot or the 24-foot, and you've got a shelter that you can stake it down to the ground with a few stakes and move into. And it'll handle huge winds. I've been in it at 80 mile an hour, no problem. And you can live in it all year long. With the insulation of the wood stove, we have people up in Alaska that say that they stay warm at sub-zero temperatures. So that's what you need. You need something, depending on where you are. If you're in Hawaii, you don't need to worry about the temperature range, but if you're in Montana, you certainly do.
Right.
So,
it's also designed so it lets the snow.
We've been selling the daylight to them. People tell their friends, and they like them a lot. I've got a very high, about a 99.8% satisfaction rating, and we've got a Better Business Bureau AAA rating. So we turned out a good product. It's not fancy. It isn't built to win any beauty contests like these expensive geodesic domes they use for car shows and things like that. It's built to house your family and keep them safe through inclement weather for seasons, not just months, but year after year. Yeah, we've had some people have been living in them for nearly 4 years, and they speak very highly of the experience. Roomy,
now, how big are they? Yeah, it's a large one. It's like 9 foot high, and it can house up to 25 people, I think it is?
Yes, up to 25 people comfortably. And with the wood stove and the insulation on it, you can just hunker down and zip the door closed and let it snow.
Right, and you have also a floor. You have a floor in there. You have it zipped up so that even if there's water flow past it, it's not going to go underneath and inside the tent.
That's correct. Our floor is a fairly large material, same material as the multi-laminate polymer that we use, and it's 1 foot bigger all the way around than the floor. So we go up the sides by a foot and snap it with our clips that hold it in place, and then if water should run under the dome, it won't get your clothing, bedding, other things inside wet. Yeah,
and of course you can even hang hammocks inside it. I think the smaller one can take 6 hammocks. The larger one can take how many?
Up to 10. We had one lady give us a call, and she says, I found a new use for the TURTLETUFF. She says, I set up my 24-footer. I took my daughter's 14-foot trampoline, took the legs off, put it inside and hung it from the hubs, which will handle the weight just above our heads. And she says, we throw all of our kids up.
Come back to the Nutrimedical report. So let's talk about the general events that are going on. The first thing I tell people is don't be in any big city anywhere in the world, period. Number 2, don't be downwind of a potential nuclear meltdown of a nuclear reactor. Number 3, don't be in a tsunami zone, like in the strike zone of the Cumbre Viejo super volcanic island that can slide off, and they've been monitoring it and saying if it ever slides off, it'll create a tsunami that could be potentially as high as 800 feet high, striking the coast at Mach 1, 700 miles an hour, North America, Britain, France, Germany, etc. And most of the reactors in the world are on a coastal area because they have to take in water and cool off these reactors, because they're all basically, whether they're steam or other water turbine systems, they're all based on the idea of taking in water and cooling off a reactor core and generating power using steam or superheated water. So, the other thing is, of course, the volcanic activity is increasing worldwide, and more nations are acquiring more nuclear weapons. I saw a video presentation at the 440-seat media theater in July 10th, 1994, underground, a couple miles down, by the way, at Schriever Air Force Base, Fulton, Colorado. There's 3 higher levels of security, and I had a level of security clearance equivalent to the U.S. President when I was one of the doctors taking care of employees at U.S. Space Command Strategic Defense Star Wars, and later working with Reserve Admiral John Hughes on the Rocky Flats facility and also war games of Operation Top Off and Dark Winter with the FBI and CDC for the federal government. So I work with these guys first hand in hand, and it's hard to say if they're just stupid or evil or both. I call it Stevel, but our government are hell-bent on population reduction. That includes Obama. They're actually talking about a reduction in world population by 90 to 95%. It's in the Georgia Guidestones. These people think it's just a lot of people think it's a conspiracy theory when they can go visit this monument in Georgia by a Rosicrucian. And you have to understand, Obama is a 32nd degree high-level Mason. These people are all involved with some very nasty stuff. And a lot of people are getting spiritual and other warnings to tell them that they better start prepping, because I'm not going to set dates, but I can tell you the different events to watch. The first one I think is going to really kind of start pulling things apart is with the war heating up in Yemen. And I just got an email from one of my listeners that wanted me to correlate what happened with the nuclear attack, which is a neutron weapon against Yemen, which was done by Saudi Arabia. We call them the crypto Jews. They're actually Sabbatean wizards that went from Basra in the 18th century to take over and make deals with the British to become the viziers not only of Europe for the Middle Ages, but also the main alliance to create the Saudi Arabian Empire for the British new oil companies when they discovered oil. So people need to understand that using neutron weapons against the Houthi rebels is bad, and it's my telling you right now in advance of it that every ship that goes through the Strait of Hormuz now is being boarded by Iranians. And when the Iranians finally decide to close the strait, which all they have to do is make a phone call to Lloyd's of London, and the strait's closed. It's over. And that means the world economy is going to crash. The derivatives market, which is highly leveraged on oil and gas and these other resources, including the economies of Greece, which is $265 billion of debt that they owe right now, and the trillions and trillions of dollars that are actually in these derivatives markets, the whole house of cards is probably going to come down, at least partially come down, for a very, very painful crash this fall. And I'm not saying that it's going to be the end, but their solution to the first part of the solution is to actually get rid of cash, because they say they can't raise the interest rates because governments can't afford to do that. So their first thing is to get rid of money. If that doesn't sound like Revelation 13, well, I don't know what is. Getting rid of money means you don't have cash in your pocket anymore, and they make gold and silver even illegal currency or tender, which the government wants to do because they want all the currency in exchange under their control. And we're now seeing the rise of 12 cryptocurrencies plus, including Bitcoin, which more and more people are taking, and people are even starting to barter online, things like eBay. What do you think of all these events? I really think all hell is going to break loose between now and the fall as we head toward the election cycle, and this war in the Middle East is really going to heat up and going to get bad enough. We're going to have a peace treaty come out of it where they're going to partition the state of Israel and the city of Jerusalem, which Obama has promised he's going to guarantee a Palestinian state before he leaves office next year. So I think the peace treaty is coming before Obama leaves. What do you think?
Well, what you say, I have indications from some of my people that I've heard the same things will be happening this fall. Fall is time when they dry up the currency, and that's going to cause all kinds of pandemonium to break loose.
Right.
If you don't want to store gold, then store basic grain, food, stuff you can eat.
Right, and have layers.
It'll be worth thousands of dollars, because if you can't eat it, you die.
Right. Well, we have PrepareWise, which are Mylar bags, so you can have smaller units. We have the Ready Store, and both of them have advanced medical equipment. You've got the best shelters. I tell people, start putting your budget aside. I tell people have 1/3 of your budget in preppers, things like TURTLETUFF shelters and storageable food and self-protection. 1/3 in nutraceuticals and things to get away from toxic polypharmacy, so you can get away from the doctors and the toxic medical industry. If you need to take drugs, stockpile as much generic as you need, but only 20% of drugs are appropriate 20% of the time. In other words, don't use an ACE inhibitor, use an ACE receptor blocker if you have to use one. Don't ever use beta blockers except cardioselective like low-dose Coreg. Don't use any HMG CoRe reductase inhibitors. There's a whole series that I constantly say on the show, so you'll get it over and over again. Have lots of storable food, have heritage seeds, have the ability, like TURTLETUFF shelters, you even have a greenhouse division where you can actually have your TURTLETUFF shelter connected by a tunnel to a greenhouse. You can have even solar. You can actually get solar attachments to have a solar generator to run, say, your computers or some lights, some LED lights inside. So you literally can have a livable situation that's even portable, that you can have a little fifth wheel with the TURTLETUFF shelter, haul it behind your SUV or whatever, and set it up anywhere. It's far better than having a building, and you can have a whole community of these. So we talk about our realtor, Dave and Jean Mitchell. We're usually on weekly. We're going to do a special this coming Wednesday. Not this Wednesday. What day is it now? they're going to be coming in Wednesday on the third hour on the program to talk about some of these prepper issues. But I really think it's not the end. And people say, oh, it's going to be the end. No, it's not. This is the preparation for the end. The end is going to start after the Shemitah year and the year of Jubilee, the year of correction. And I believe this fall, after the Elul 29, is a time of correction. I think that our nation is now sanctioned the destruction of the marriage, with the Defense of Marriage Act being destroyed by our so-called Supreme Court of maniacs in our Supreme Court, which are violating common decency. We have the push to have abortion. We have Hillary Clinton. If she gets in, you can say goodbye-bye to the idea of getting rid of abortion. We have the Abortion Act causing pain, passed by Congress already, and it just has to be passed by the Senate. It means all abortion that causes pain, which, by the way, is from 6 weeks on.
Too bad Hillary's mom didn't have an abortion.
Well, people have to understand who Hillary is. Hillary is a human husk inhabited by a legion of demons. And the reason is they took this human being, this child, and they exposed her to sex magic ritual and human sacrifice so that they could shatter her psyche and have her inhabited by transdimensional entities. People say, no, Dr. Deagle, that's insanity. I have personally, as a physician, seen people who are possessed. If you think it's not a real thing, if you think it's not real, you're an idiot, okay? I've worked in emergency department, trauma burn units, and I've seen people who, this is not just a psychiatric diagnosis, this is a psycho-spiritual diagnosis. They are possessed. There's no doubt in my mind that it actually does exist, okay? It's not an imaginary thing. And what they do is these people are leaders that are given to us. The only leaders that the globalists and the controller freaks will give us are people with dissociative identity disorder and multiple personalities. So when you look at Barack Obama, the Photoshop president, this man is a manufactured entity. Barack Obama exists in their minds and in the spiritual realm, but inside the head of this man, the soul, is a shattered psyche with cringing little boy in the corner by the name of Barry Soetoro, who's a Indonesian boy that went to a madrasa in Indonesia to learn how to become a good little Muslim. And Barack Obama is a manufactured entity, created and controlled by, avatared by I call satanic Xbox with a minion of hell, controlling his every move and his bobblehead movements as he walks down the White House lawn. Welcome back. When we see the what I call the mass what I call population-based control freaks and what they're up to, and we see the interaction between those and people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, his book, The Grand Chessboard. We see the World Watch Institute. We see the NSM back in 1974 with the globalists that are planning out all these things. And people say, even though they published it, people say, no, that's a conspiracy theory. I said, you need to read. You need to stop spitting at the people like us, to tell you the truth. And I've been on the inside, having seen a lot of these things, have been exposed to them firsthand. I'm skeptical. But when you get smacked in the side of the head with a fact, when I worked at U.S. Space Command, Strategic Defense, Star Wars, when you work with the government on Operation Top Off and Dark Winter, when you actually sit down at Adams Mark Hotel in March of 2001, months before 9/11, they talk about war game simulation with anthrax and micronukes going off, and so in the northeast United States, you realize everything is a false flag, including this water shortage. It's more garbage that they're trying to feed the population so they can poison us by saying, we really do have to reduce the population, just like the governor of California tells us. You can only support 500,000 people, and there's 37.85 million people here in California. If people don't take this seriously, they're nuts. They're the ones that are nuts, not us. And they need to get a life and realize we're bulletproof from any stupid comments or ad hominem attacks. We're really saying, you don't listen to us, you're going to suffer and you're going to die. And you're going to die really painfully. And when you think these big blockbuster movies are bad, like San Andreas, even with some bad science, it'll be considerably worse than that. You won't have superheroes saving your body either. If it isn't the Most High God telling you where to get out of now and get prepared, you're going to suffer badly, aren't you?
And you need to read the scriptures and pray so you have the Holy Ghost so you can understand and hear the instructions from God when He gives them to you.
Well, yeah, and the best way to think of they call it the Holy Ghost, but really it's the Spirit of the Most High God. When God's Spirit and your soul fuse, you go from being a mortal person to an immortal one. Your soul can't die. A lot of people think, well, my soul's eternal. Not until it fuses with the will of the Most High God, and then it becomes an eternal soul. Your soul is not eternal unless it's in lockstep in the will of the Most High. And that's the marriage they talk about, the marriage supper of the Lamb. The marriage supper is we collectively are the wife in the sense of God. We collectively are the Queen of Heaven. You know, when they talk about the Queen of Heaven, which is a pagan thing? No, the Queen of Heaven is collectively all of mankind through the past, present, and future, that literally God wants to reproduce the people on earth physically are here, children 10,000 years from now that know and worship the Most High God and know that He is the source of all knowledge, goodness, wisdom, and the ability for a civilization to persist beyond the singularity of artificial intelligence, nuclear weapons, pollution, nearer space objects, gamma bursts in the galaxy, and even the eventual explosion of our own sun 4 billion years from now. People need to understand our God sees the end from the beginning because He's the eternal one and will give us knowledge, wisdom to deal with any problem, anytime. That's why I tell people on this show, you can present me with any problem in any sphere whatsoever, and I will give you an immediate answer or a framework for an answer, and with prayer we'll come back with a specific answer to tell you how to deal with it on any problem. I don't care if it's geopolitical, financial, space weather, I will present you with an answer. And the reason is because I know how to dial into God. I have God on speed dial. And I use my logic, which God gave me, and my talents, and I use my spirit to hear God's will because He wants to protect His people. And you need to know out there that the end is coming. The end, not of the world, but the end of this age is coming very, very quickly. And this is not a delusion.
He's not going to leave them alone to be sacrificed by Satan.
No. And people think, we're making all this stuff up. You know, we're just biological machines that are highly evolved slime. No, we're not. We're created in the image of the Creator God. We literally have a right to pick up a scepter and start ruling. We have the potential, if we hear God's will and do it, to become what we call Shema, to become eternal ones. And heaven doesn't start when you die. Heaven starts today when you serve God. Heaven starts today, and hell becomes evident when you drop away.
As God is, man may become.
Right. Well, man, to me, honestly, man is, in a sense, created in the image of the Creator. You know, when I do my discernment, I tell people, say, well, all the gifts that I've given, it doesn't mean I'm special. It means I'm just a forerunner of what you are. What Jesus was saying, when I return, you shall be as I am. So what Jesus is actually saying is, He's the incarnation of the Creator God in its fullness. What we are, potentially, as well. And that means that He's saying, you're not qualitatively different than me, Yeshua, that saved the world by literally, bleeding on the cross and dying. But He's saying, but when you do your God's will, you will bleed in this fallen world. You will suffer in this world, and the blood of your sweat will be mixed with the blood of the Creator God who came and incarnated in flesh on our planet to teach us as a metaphysician exactly the way, which is how to walk with God and how to become His children. And when we do that, we'll have the right science, so we'll overcome earthquakes. We'll have the right science to overcome pollution. We'll have the right science to have non-oxygen consuming technology for energy. We'll have the science to extend human lifespan so people will live for thousands of years, as it says in Genesis, and they shall not die, but they shall literally walk from this life to the next. We're not going to see that day without a lot of pain because people want to reject, I call unoneness, that we are literally a cell in the body of mankind. We don't have empathy for each other or the living things on our planet. We are not ready spiritually to even deal with the singularity of artificial intelligence and all the science that we're creating that literally from the cauldron of Satan will consume us because our spirituality has not risen to that high enough level. That's what's going on.
Yep.
And people say, well, then why do I need a turtle-tough shelter? Because I said, I only have partial knowledge. I'm going to tell you, if you aren't out of the big cities, if you aren't away from fault lines, if you're not upwind of nuclear things, if you don't have backup food, power, and other things, 3 days will make you crazy. 2 weeks will make you insane and a murderer. And people say, oh, no, that won't happen. I said, well, I know from my classified sources from the Canadian, U.S., and Australian governments that this goes back 20 years. I even have the plans laid out in the U.S. postal offices for actually interrogation rooms they've already built in all the postal offices. And when they hear all this stuff about Walmarts are going to be parts of FEMA and the federal government in total control. They're getting ready. When they have things like Jane Helm, this is not a joke. People think, oh, it's just a joke. It's not just terror porn. They're getting ready to bring in foreign troops on American soil, and I prophesied it back in April of 1999 on the Prophecy Club Journal, where I said that there will be a call from a future U.S. president asking the president of Russia to bring 500,000 military personnel in from China in America to police the American population. People say that won't happen. I know of actual military operations going on for decades with foreign troops on American soil.
He's made deals with both China and Russia to be peacekeepers for us. Peacekeepers at their demands.
And you'll have Mongolians coming in here with broken English, and you'll have Russians and former CIS nations that hardly speak a sentence, and they'll have body armor on, and they'll come in Bearcats and armored personnel carriers, or even United Nations vehicles, and they'll be telling you to get into the truck in broken English, and if you don't, they'll shoot you on the spot because American troops won't. And if people think, that's not going to happen, Deagle, let me tell you, you better damn well listen. I am sick and tired of people that won't listen.
Of people who are getting in tune with this. That's why I have a Turtle Tough shelter and food storage, so I can get out of Dodge. I cannot stay in a city. When things break down, you won't be able to stay in a city. You're going to have to head for the wilderness and use your resources that you have and your shelter, your food, and tough it out of sight. 90% somewhere.
90% of disasters are going to be small inconveniences. 90% will be like that power blackout in 3.5 years ago, where the power went out, and I think it's November for about 11 hours here in Southern California to so many millions of people here in Baja California and down in Mexico. But big disasters like a coronal mass ejection or cyber attack on a power grid, or the very first sign that you're in a nuclear war is that all the power goes out and your cell phone doesn't work. Not that you have a big explosion. The first thing is all electricity's gone and your cell phone doesn't work anymore and you can't download anything. Okay.
The Amish know how to protect against that. They live off the grid. They live, without all those conveniences, and we're going to have to learn how to do that because of coronal mass ejection or a high altitude nuke takes out EMP all of our stuff. We're going to go back to the Stone Age. We're going to have to learn how to live primitively.
You can have the Russians go from a Tupolev jet, one of those big Bear bombers, and have cruise missiles that can explode 200 miles off the coast or in the high atmosphere 200,000 feet and blow a radius of 1,500 radial miles of all the electronics, including from the west coast and east coast. And the first thing that's going to happen is your eyes are poked out electronically, and then you get a phone call to the White House, and the White House will capitulate and allow foreign troops to come in and monitor American populations. If you don't think that's what's likely to happen, you're a fool, and you're going to suffer. And us Christians and us believers and us constitutional Republican Americans need to stand up and say, we're not going to do this.
Well, you need to be ready to shift gears.